Your Scandinavian surname is not just a name, it is a clan marker, a bloodline signal. A compressed piece of Viking history that your ancestors carried out of the fjords, across the North Sea, and through 1,000 years of conquest, settlement, and survival. Straight down to you. Most people with Scandinavian surnames have been told they sound Norse. Maybe they know their name means something in an old language. Maybe they've traced it back a few generations on a family tree website, but they don't know what it actually reveals. To decode your surname, you first need to understand the system that created it. For most of the Viking Age, roughly 793 to 1100 CE, Scandinavians did not use hereditary surnames at all. Identity was built on a patronymic system. You were known as your father's child, nothing more. Eric's son became Ericsson. Thor's son became Thorson. Sigurd's daughter became Sigrid's daughter. This system was fluid, non-hereditary, and reset with every generation. A man named Leif Erikson had a son named Thorvald Leifsson. The surname changed completely in a single generation. There was no fixed family name passing down through time. What replaced patronymics, and when varied by region. Norway and Iceland held on to the patronymic system longest, with Iceland formally retaining it to this day. Denmark adopted hereditary surnames earliest, driven by administrative pressure from the church and state in the medieval period. Sweden followed in the 17th and 18th centuries, often under direct government mandate forcing rural populations to choose fixed family names for tax and census records. This means that where and when your Scandinavian surname fossilized tells you something important. A hereditary Danish surname appearing before 1500 likely traces to a family significant enough to need a fixed identity early. A Norwegian surname adopted in the 19th century may simply reflect the farm or valley where your ancestors lived when the government finally demanded a permanent name. But in both cases, the root word, the actual name embedded in your surname, points somewhere older, somewhere Viking. The structure of a Scandinavian surname carries specific information depending on its suffix, prefix, and root. The most widespread Scandinavian surname pattern globally: Eriksson, Johansson, Andersson, Magnusson, Larsson, Nielsen. All of these are patronymics that fossilized into hereditary surnames at different points in different countries. The son ending is predominantly Swedish and Norwegian. The sen ending is predominantly Danish and Norwegian. The root name before the suffix is the important part. It points to the given name that was significant enough in your family's history to become the anchor point when hereditary surnames were adopted. Often the name of a powerful patriarch, a respected craftsman, or a locally prominent figure at the moment the name was fixed. Magnus, Magnusson, derives from the Latin magnus, meaning great, adopted into Norse culture through the legendary King Magnus the Good of Norway, whose name became so prestigious that families claiming connection to his legacy adopted it as their patronymic anchor. Erik, Eriksson, Eriksson, traces to the Old Norse Erikr, meaning eternal ruler. The name of Eric the Red, who colonized Greenland, and his son Leif Erikson, who reached North America 5 centuries before Columbus. A surname rooted in Eric is not pointing at a common man. These are older, more specifically Norse in origin, and often indicate surnames that form directly from Viking Age naming conventions, rather than later administrative processes. Bjorn means bear, strength, ferocity, warrior status. Ulf means wolf. The warrior class association of wolves in Norse culture runs through everything from Odin's companion wolves Geri and Freki to the berserker tradition of warriors who fought in wolf pelts. Heim means home or settlement. Vik means bay or inlet, the root word of Viking itself, meaning people of the bay. A surname ending in Vik doesn't just sound Norse. It is geographically and culturally pinpointing a coastal settlement identity that goes back to the earliest Viking Age communities. Now, the clans themselves, the Yngling dynasty, the bloodline behind surnames rooted in Ing, Ingi, and related forms. The Ynglings were the oldest documented Norse royal dynasty, described in the Ynglinga saga as descendants of the god Freyr himself, rulers of the ancient kingdom of Uppsala in Sweden. Their name derives from Yngvi, one of Odin's names, embedding a claim of divine descent directly into the dynastic identity. Surnames carrying the Yng root: Ingvarsson, Ingesson, Ingolfsson, trace back to the Yngling naming tradition. Ingolfur Arnarsson, the first permanent Norse settler of Iceland, carried an Yngroot name. If your surname carries this root, your family's naming tradition connects to the oldest royal bloodline in Scandinavian history, the Fairhair dynasty. The bloodline behind surnames rooted in Harald, Halfdan, and Sigurd. Harald Fairhair, Haraldr Harfagri, unified Norway under a single crown around 872 CE, creating the Norwegian kingdom and triggering one of the most significant Viking diaspora events in history. The nobles and chieftains who refused to submit to Harald's centralized rule took to their longships and colonized Iceland, the Faroe Islands, Orkney, Shetland, and the Scottish Highlands rather than bend the knee. Surnames rooted in Harald, Halfdan, and Sigurd carry the naming conventions of this dynastic world. Haraldsson is one of the most direct. It was the patronymic of Orald Hardrada, the last great Viking king, who died at the Battle of Stamford Bridge in 1066, 3 weeks before the Norman conquest reshaped England forever. The Ragnarsson clan, the bloodline behind surnames rooted in Ragnar, Bjorn, and Ivar. Ragnar Lothbrok, whether fully historical or partially legendary, represents the most famous Viking clan identity in popular memory. His sons, Bjorn Ironside, Ivar the Boneless, Halfdan Ragnarsson, Sigurd Snake in the Eye, Ubba, commanded the great heathen army that invaded England in 865 CE and came within a campaign season of conquering the entire island. Bjorn Ironside is historically documented as the founder of the Munso dynasty of Swedish kings. Ivar the Boneless established Viking control over Dublin and York simultaneously. Surnames carrying Bjorn, Ragnar, and Ivar roots are connecting to this specific warrior dynasty, the most militarily aggressive and geographically expansive clan network the Viking Age produced. Here is what most people fundamentally underestimate about Viking clan reach. The descendants of these Scandinavian clans did not stay in Scandinavia. They did not even stay in the British Isles. Bjorn Ironside raided the Mediterranean coastline, Spain, France, Italy, North Africa. In 859 CE, with a fleet of 62 ships, Varangian Norse warriors became the elite imperial bodyguard of the Byzantine emperors in Constantinople. Leif Erikson's crew stood on the North American continent in approximately 1000 CE, 500 years before any other European. The Normans, who conquered England in 1066, reshaped southern Italy and Sicily, and launched the First Crusade, were the direct descendants of Viking settlers in northern France. Norman is simply a contracted form of Norseman. The most consequential military force of the medieval period was a Viking clan that had spent 150 years learning French, which means the reach of Scandinavian clan surnames extends far beyond people who identify as Scandinavian. If your surname is Norman French in origin, Beaumont, Montgomery, Percy, Clare, you may be carrying Viking clan DNA under a French linguistic coat of paint. The Vikings did not just raid history, they became it. So, look at your surname. If it ends in son or sen, you are carrying a patronymic that fossilized at the moment your family's most significant ancestor was significant enough to name a dynasty after. If it carries a Norse root, Eric, Magnus, Bjorn, Ulf, Harald, Ragnar, Sigurd, you are carrying the naming convention of a specific Viking Age clan, chieftain, or dynasty that left its mark on history so deeply that their descendants chose to wear their name forever. And if your surname looks Norman, French, or even vaguely British, Check the root. Because underneath centuries of linguistic drift, there is a measurable probability that what you're carrying is Norse, renamed, translated. But Norse, your Scandinavian surname, is not just a name. It is a clan identity that survived 1,000 years of history to reach you. Subscribe. See ya.